Rio Salado. Its Chief Executive is Fiona MacAulay, who has been very busy since the company's relaunch.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you all for giving me the opportunity to introduce Echo Energy to you and to tell you a little bit about the company and what we've been up to at Bolivia and beyond. So, as Sarah explained, Echo Energy has been a relaunch using a platform of independent resources. That relaunch took place in April of this year. It involved bringing in a cornerstone investor, Continental Investment Partners, and the injection of some capital and some debt, and giving also the opportunity to retail private investors to invest on those same terms. Echo is an AIM-listed, entrepreneurial, exploration-led, gas-focused, value-driven exploration and production company. We have an ambition of becoming a mid-cap E&P over the 3 to 5 year time frame. So Echo is a little bit of a boy band, is the term I've been using recently. As Sarah said, James Parson is our chairman, and he has put together a fantastic team of individuals, brought together some of them from Sound, some of us coming in from outside of the company, to formulate the key of the people part of our business. We've got a very bold, ambitious regional growth strategy. I'm delighted that the article that Sarah mentioned earlier focuses on the fact that gas is the future here. We are in a carbon-conscious world, and we see a real niche market in Latin America, using that carbon consciousness as a method of really bolstering the growth in the gas market across that region. And the region for us really extends from the Caribbean down to Patagonia. So we're talking about the whole of Latin America here. As I say, we have a really experienced team. We've got regional capability that has been brought in, that has worked within the region and around the region, credibility and contacts. So we're really building on this DNA that was formulated in Sound Energy, but we are not a Sound 2. We are most definitely Echo Energy. We currently have around about £26 million in the bank, which is a nice place to be. It gives us a cornerstone, it gives us a seat at the table when we enter into negotiations with other companies. We're taken seriously, and we've really seen that over the last few months. So we've been relaunched for under 6 months now. I think we're about 5 months into this process. And I'll come on to the assets that we've managed to bring into the portfolio already. But really for us, there are 3 P's in this business. It's people, portfolio and partnerships. And indeed, portfolio, we really could go to the location, but it's portfolio. And my job as Chief Executive is to ensure that we have that portfolio, and over the next 6 to 12 months, we develop that portfolio to be the basis of our business. The second P is the people. I joined Echo Energy 2 months ago today, so 8 weeks into the job now. I joined from Rockhopper, where I was Chief Operating Officer, and joined a fantastic team, James at the helm, but we should be absolutely aware that James now is a non-executive chairman. He's doing his day job at Sound, so anyone who's a shareholder of Sound shouldn't be worried that there's any distraction there. We have Marco Fumagalli, who is our cornerstone investor, and Stephen White, who many of you will know has recently been appointed as chairman of Gunnell. So a fantastic world-class team on the board. Alongside that, we have Will Holland, who's joined us very recently as CFOs. Will was an ex-banker with Macquarie. He also spent some time with Sound. Indeed, he brought Tendrara into the Sound portfolio from Fastnet. And Julian Besser, importantly, our VP of Exploration, is the former exploration manager of BG in Bolivia. So he's got time on the ground. He's lived in Bolivia, he knows the assets inside out, and he's been a fantastic contributor to building that Bolivian part of our portfolio. So, why Latin America? Well, we really feel that this is a niche market. It's a compelling gas story. We have gas basins which extend through the region. As I say, I'm not sure if this pointer works, but let's have a go. We have the region from the Caribbean down to Patagonia. We have a fantastic gas trend that follows all the way through this part of Latin America. It's a gas-hungry, energy-hungry part of the world. I think the use of gas is growing by something like 1.6% per annum, and in Latin America we're seeing almost double that growth in gas utilisation. We're very much a net importer of gas into Latin America, and all of these green arrows that you see on the right-hand map show the import routes of gas into the area. Currently, Latin America is taking over 40% of the gas exports from the US. So that's a really, really high gas utilisation. And for many people, who are dependent on this gas, and there's growing domestic and industrial gas utilisation across the region, they're having to bring in the gas. For example, in Argentina, gas is coming in, it's being regasified, and the gas price there is $17. If they can import it from within the region, then that more domestic or international, but within the region production is anywhere between $5 and $7. So you can see there's a great force there to increase the regional production. We really focused in the first instance on Bolivia. It's the unloved part of the Latin American gas supply hub, and yet incredibly important. On the previous map, we saw the gas trendology, and the USGS estimate that within Bolivia there's still about 24 TCF yet to find. There's many, many discoveries already in place, but there's still 24 TCF yet to find. Around about 77% of the gas produced in Bolivia is currently exported, and that's on long-term gas sales contracts both to Argentina and to Brazil. And alongside that, there's a growing domestic gas utilisation within Bolivia itself. Bolivia has to meet these gas sales agreements. These are long-term contracts. If you think about gas sales, you're making a commitment for a good number of years. It's not the same as oil, where there's a transitory arrangement. A parcel of oil can be sold. You're not necessarily tied in for a long period of time. With a gas sales agreement, you make a commitment for a very, very long period of time. And Bolivia needs to meet those gas sales agreements that it already has in place. The gas sales agreements to Argentina, the gas sales agreements to Brazil. And so they absolutely are focused on ensuring that they promote exploration within the country to ensure that they can meet those targets. In addition to that, they've just recently signed up another agreement with Paraguay so that there will be a further gas pipeline in place over the next 5 years exporting to Paraguay. So you can see that they've got a real need to actually fulfill those contracts. Alongside that, they've maintained those high gas prices. I think the export price out of Bolivia is currently around about the $7. Every contract is required to put some of its gas into the domestic market. Those are all terms that are negotiated at the point at which you take on your block, but it's always limited. So you're never in a position whereby all of your gas has to go to a domestic market. And indeed, very recently, just a couple of weeks ago, within Bolivia, there has finally been a lid taken off that gas pricing. So previously, the gas pricing was fixed at about $1.50, and that's now has the ability to be increased to over $2. So that's a really important step in the right direction by the government to stop the suppression of the domestic gas pricing. So Bolivia, we really believe that the blocks that we have managed to access, Huaco and Rio Salado, are very much in the right postcode. I've said it before and I'll say it again. We're not just in Mayfair here, we're in the Park Lane of Mayfair. Our blocks are situated within the Tarija Basin, which is the largest of the gas basins within Bolivia. And if I could just point here, this is the location of Huaco, Rio Salado around it. We're on trend, adjacent to and between a number of the largest gas discoveries. Each of these gas discoveries is in the range of 2 to 6 TCF. So these are big discoveries. Those are recoverable resources. This isn't a tight gas situation. We're talking about when you discover 5 or 6 TCF, you're going to be producing 80 to 90% of that gas out of these fractured basements. Our blocks are situated between acreage held by Shell and with Repsol. This well for Repsol has just recently been spudded, and the well indicated to the left, to the west of us, is the Shell well that's going to be drilled, probably spudded later on this year. So, you know, we're right there in the centre, playing with the big boys in terms of our acreage position. We're surrounded by fields that are multi-TCF, and we see a multi-TCF opportunity in the field areas that we have selected. So we've had to pay zero to actually access this opportunity. The Huaco block, the first of our assets into the portfolio, is operated by Plus Petrol. And I'll come on to Plus Petrol in terms of their operations across the region in a moment. But they're a 100% operator. For zero cost, we've managed to negotiate a deal with Plus Petrol in which at the end of 1 year, during which we will pay for seismic reprocessing, so we haven't had to shoot this seismic, the block is entirely covered by a 3D, which extends out over the Rio Salado acreage. We will reprocess that for a relatively minimal cost to actually look at the substructure here and to determine whether or not we want to progress on to drilling a well. At that point in time, we would take an 80% operated position. So we would gain ourselves operatorship, we'd gain ourselves a license, we'd carry them for the remaining 20%. So fantastic, no upfront cost to get us into this acreage, which, as I say, is right in the centre of activity as it stands at the moment. This is all about being in the right place from a geological perspective. It's all about having the right rocks here. And what we have within the region are the significant fold and thrust belts. The Huaco structure sits over one of these piggyback structures. Our target is at depth into a naturally fractured reservoir. And what do I mean by that? Well, that's where the rock itself, because of the structuration, because of the pressure that's being put on it, has become fractured. So we don't have a situation where we have to go out and fracture this. It's already fractured itself. And some of these wells can produce at absolutely phenomenal rates. We're talking about 100 to 150 million standard cubic feet a day. I mean, in anybody's world, those are high production rates, which means you need less wells to produce the gas. So for us, that's a really compelling exploration story. We believe we're forging a fantastic relationship now with Plus Petrol. We've formed a joint technical team, and indeed our team are down there again towards the end of this week to run through the processing tenders. We're just about to award that piece of work as we speak. But what does it look like on the ground? You know, there's always the thought that we're in the middle of the jungle and we won't be able to get there. Well, actually, our block, and you can just see it on this Google Earth map, is situated adjacent to regional infrastructure that's already in place. We're situated in a position whereby we've got road networks that are close to. We're very close to the operations base where all of the service companies are located, and we're really very close to the gas export line to Argentina. So should we have a discovery, the actual costs of bringing that gas to market should be really minimal in terms of worldwide thoughts on development costs. And just to give you an indicator of scale, this is the scale of a reservoir thickness in similar wells within the region. We're talking about 600 metres. So, and to put that in scale, here's an image of the Shard and the Gherkin, just so that you can see the thickness of the reservoir package that we would be anticipating as being the primary target here. And this is it in Outcrop nearby. So, partnerships, the second of our P's. As I've said, Plus Petrol are the company that we've partnered up with in Bolivia at the moment. They're a leading private oil and gas company, so many of you may not have even heard of them, but they're active across the region. They actually produce 434,000 barrels of oil per day, so that's no small operating company here. And they've got close on to 1 billion barrels of 2P reserves on their books, so they really are a large company and a very significant regional player. Centred in Buenos Aires is their headquarters, but with offices across the region. They're a very experienced operator, both on the exploration side and the development side, so we're delighted to have them as a partner. In Bolivia, of course, it's all about relationships with the government and with the regulator. We've forged some fantastic relationships there now with both YPFB, which are the state operator, and their subsidiary companies, which effectively are still part of the state but run on individual, within individual areas. The company that is focused in the Tarija Basin is YPFB Chaco, and again our team are down in Santa Cruz next week, and we're having further discussions, direct negotiations with YPFB Chaco and YPFB about other parts of the portfolio. And interestingly, Bolivia has now stated that it will have its first license round because of their requirement to actually build up their portfolio and to build up their resource base to fill the gas sales agreements that they have in place. So they're absolutely 100% committed. At the moment, natural gas exports for them formulate around about 40% of their gross their GDP. And so they really need to replace the resources that have been used in order to fulfill those long-term gas contracts. We understand that for retail investors, for private investors, news flow is critically important. We've been talking about the portfolio as if all it contains at the moment is Huaco and Rio Sonado, which is indeed the case. But, you know, this is not where this portfolio is going to end up. My job, as I said earlier, is to build on this portfolio. Within Bolivia, we think we've still got some work to do there to add in some other acreage into the portfolio. But it's very much this piece of the picture that we're focused on at the moment. That beyond, Bolivia and beyond. And the team are in region and have been in region for several weeks now, on and off, in terms of discussions with a number of other parties to build on that piece of the picture. So whilst we have a fairly steady news flow in relation to the assets that we already have in place, you just need to think of those as one piece, one of the building blocks in this portfolio picture, which by the end of this year I would hope to include a number of other assets. So what do ECHO really believe that we are bringing to the table? Well, we do have a fantastic team. We are able to identify opportunities. We see this as a counter-cyclical market. We see a niche there that is ready to be filled. We have a good opportunity to access acreage at low cost to shareholders. We can use our expertise to actually work on that acreage and to develop the acreage. And then Alongside building the partnerships with the companies that we're partnering up with, we'd also look to bringing in strategic partners in the same way that Sand have done to help them with the Tendra project in order to develop and monetize that part of the portfolio, which is what we as shareholders should all be interested in, the actual monetization at the end of the day. So, in summary, portfolio needs people and it needs partnerships. And I think we've got an absolutely fantastic opportunity in Latin America to build on what we've started. We're very early on our journey. We see our journey being a 3 to 5 year story, and we'd very much welcome your investment in the company, which we think has got a long way to go. So thank you.
Yes, and in fact, over 3 to 5 years, you do have ambitions to become a mid-cap E&P company. And thank you very much for telling us about this compelling gas story with the multi-TCF opportunity in the people portfolio and partnerships. So, is it Quaco? Quaco. So you said that the 3D, the seismic is paid for. It's done. But
so that's right.
The drilling isn't paid for. So will you have to take from that £26 million that you have at the moment?
Yeah, we would need to use a part of that cash base, I'm sure, particularly in the pre-drill phase, which is where we're planning the well, where we're actually making sure that we understand exactly how to drill the well. So all of that planning part takes cash. But for us, it is very much about partnerships, and it's about bringing in either strategic or industry partners to help us with that funding. I mean, if we can build the story and we can de-risk the prospectivity that we see there to become a compelling story for an investor to come in, then we have no doubt that we'd be able to bring in partners to assist us with that.
Okay, because that's important, because you're quite keen to maintain that pot of £26 million, because it does give you credibility when you go to the negotiating table.
That's right, it absolutely does. And you know, depending on what deals we put into the portfolio, maybe we'll need to raise additional cash to furnish those deals. And provided that story is a good story and that we can demonstrate that there's going to be good return on that cash injection, then we shouldn't be worried about doing that as part of our core strategy.
Okay. Questions from the floor, please. 1, 2, 3.
Morning, Fiona. Again.
Morning, Mr. Rose.
Yes, thank you very much. Nice to see you again. 2 questions, one short-term, one rather longer term. Short-term, just coming back to Sarah's point, how much actually will the drill cost in Quaco, assuming the seismic is satisfactory? Just an approximate figure. And I presume from what you've just said that you would look to bring in some service companies to bear the bulk of the cost of that. Assuming that it's a fine discovery, are we talking about a big producer of gas in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months? Can you give a rough time scale? And also the quantity and the revenue. Now,
I think that can we let Fiona answer just one question at a time?
Yeah.
Thank you. So the approximate cost of the drilling.
Yeah. Well, actually, maybe I should sort of tie 2 bits of the question up together. So it's the time to when we would anticipate drilling and the cost, because I think those are both important. We have a 1-year time period from the point at which we signed up the agreement with Plus Patrol, which was in June, so a month and a half ago, to actually go through the technical part of the work programme. So we're just going out to tender at the moment. Well, we haven't gone out to tender. We're just about to award the contract on the seismic reprocessing. So that's all going to be in play and done by the end of this year, which means that, you know, Q1 of next year is going to be involved in seismic interpretation and actually determining whether or not the structure exists. At that point in time, we'll have a much clearer idea of how deep this well needs to be. You know, in drilling time, particularly onshore and particularly in the environment that we're looking at, it's very much about how many meters you've got to get through in order to get to your target reservoir. So it's quite difficult to quantify the exact amount of money, but 26 million wouldn't cover it. I think maybe that's the best way of putting it.
And to become a producer of gas, the time frame?
Oh, time frame. So as I said, we're very close to infrastructure here. So there's gas processing facilities close by. It's all a question of actually the amount of pipeline that's needed. But you know, we're talking about 20 kilometres. We're not talking about massive amounts of distribution network that needs to be put in place. So it's a low cost from the point of discovery. You'd be talking about, bearing in mind the various permittings, etc., etc., you'd probably be talking about 6 months post a discovery to be actually en route to production. So a pretty short time frame.
Okay, I'll have to take a question from someone else. Yeah.
Good morning, Fiona. How is the political situation affecting or going to affect your exploration, production, and the economic circumstances of the company? How stable is the government and the political situation?
So the government has been in place now under Evo Morales since 2006. So we're 11 years into that government. The government is absolutely committed to ensuring that their reserves and resources are replenished. They're putting all sorts of incentives in place to encourage companies to actually drill these exploration wells, because they know they've got a finite amount of reserves left. So currently, and I was just at their recent YPFB forum in Santa Cruz in Bolivia 3 or 4 weeks ago, you know, the focus was we have to invest more money in exploration because we need to replace resources, we need to replace reserves. So the government are 100% committed and have been incredibly welcoming to Eco Energy as a new participant in the industry in the country. So as it stands at the moment, you know, and the world is a very funny place, but as it stands at the moment, we've got 100% commitment from the Bolivian government to go ahead with our exploration campaign.
Yeah. Hi, Fiona.
Good morning.
Morning. Just a very quick question. Apart from Hoka, are you looking at other assets at the same time within South America?
We are, and we're talking to multiple parties at the moment. As you know, for us, every asset has to be incredibly technically robust. For us, it's all about the rocks, it's all about the technical chance of success, and it's all about making sure that we're close to existing infrastructure so that the cost to get from discovery to actually monetization it is minimal. So yes, we have a number of those conversations. I know it's a frustrating time for investors when they feel as if there's no news flow coming out, but that doesn't mean to say that we're not incredibly busy internally. So you know, really that's the focus for us at the moment, is on building that portfolio, and that's my job.
Sure. Sorry, just one quick one. The offices that you're establishing within South America, in Argentina, Lima, how is that going?
Yeah, so we have agreed terms with the new country manager in Bolivia. I can't announce that yet because it's confidential, but that'll be announced in due course, and hopefully in the very near future. And we're looking at whether or not we need another regional office elsewhere, and we're just defining exactly where that would be, whether it would be in Bogota or Buenos Aires, to have another regional centre.
In relation to the splitting your shares, would you say it's mainly institutional holders or private investors, and what's the split actually consisting of in terms of percentages?
So absolutely, at the moment, our investor base is almost entirely retail. We have our cornerstone investor who holds, I believe, 11%, but just going to check that. And we have another partnership group that has 7%. But even within that, actually, those are individual investors. So yeah, it's very much a private investor-focused company.
So you described your company as a boy band. If you were to give it a name, if you were to give it a name, would it be Bolivia and Beyond, or would it be the 3 Ps for people, partnerships, portfolio?
Well, you know, Bolivia is fantastic because it's going to be the one corner of our set of building blocks. So yeah, let's go for the BBs.
Very good. Fiona,
Thank
thank you very
you.
much indeed.
Thank you.